Hello and welcome to Postnatal Pilates with Better Health with Wroughton Body Balance. My name is Marissa and I'm going to be guiding you through the whole program. So we're looking at the early weeks after birth. It's all about understanding your pelvic floor and applying the pelvic floor exercises as much as possible. There's also some other very basic exercises which are perfectly safe to do, both if you had a normal delivery or you had a C-section. However, with a C-section you might be feeling a little bit more vulnerable, so take it really easy. There is a separate section for mums that had a C-section, which will go a little bit more into detail about what you can do initially and not. So you might have watched the long video where I'm explaining all about the pelvic floor, what it does, how it works. However, this is going to be a little recap of the different types of breathing. It's really important to breathe properly to engage your pelvic floor thoroughly. So everybody can do this, whether you've just had your baby or whether you've already had 3 months since you've had your baby. It's really good to work on the pelvic floor. Okay, so I'm going to start seated. It is the easiest to actually do it lying down, but I can't really talk to the camera nicely while I'm lying down. So we're going to start seated whilst I'm explaining everything, and then we're going to go through it again in a lying down position and also in a stood up position, because depending on where you are, you find it easier or harder. And it's just good to sort of feel the difference between all of that. Okay, so if you're seated on a chair, you'll be sitting nice and upright. So if I go sideways, you might see I'm sitting right on my sitting bones. So definitely not slouching backwards. So the easiest way to find your sitting bones is put your hand underneath your bum cheeks. And you'll find a very spiky bone, which hurts on your fingers. So take your fingers out. That's where you want to be sitting on. Okay? And the legs roughly in a 90-degree angle. And if you can, nice and parallel. However, if that's uncomfortable, you can have your legs wider. The main thing is you're really sitting upright, okay? Okay, so we've got 3 different ways of breathing. So the first one is belly breathing, which you might be doing naturally. It's quite a relaxing way of breathing. Yoga uses it a lot. So if you place your belly, your hands on your belly button, and then as you inhale, just let your belly dollop into your hands. And then exhale. So your belly should be shrinking away from your hands. So letting the belly fill your hands and then should be shrinking away. This, for example, is much easier lying down because your belly will just fall back in. So it's harder seated, so we have to push a little bit. So let your belly fall out and then pull your belly in to help. So just take your time with it, rush it, don't push too much, just sort of let it happen. So belly breathing, as I said, is quite a natural way of breathing. It's really relaxing. So especially if your child is cranky, you know, if you belly breathe, they can feel that and they relax with you. Okay, so I hope you all found that. The second way is breathing into your chest. So place your hands on top of your chest and we're going to breathe in. And exhale. Filling your lungs nice and full all the way to the brim. And exhale. And just one more time. Filling the lungs. And exhale. I won't be doing too many of those, although it's a good way of breathing. You get a lot of air in your lungs. It's also your fight and flight mode. So it can make you feel a little bit aggravated and edgy, especially if you do that for a long time. It's useful for its purpose, but not very relaxing. Now then we've got diaphragmatic breathing. So if you place on the hands on the side of the ribs, and I'm just going to show you what it looks like. You can expand your ribs sideways. I hope you can see I'm quite good with sideways breathing. So if you watch my rib cage and my hands, see how that expands to the side and then the rib cage closes. Now the ribs can do that because you've got muscles in between each rib. That's your intercostals, yeah, they can contract and relax. You've also got cartilage here. and you've got the two floating ribs. Okay, some people really struggle with this, others get it straight away. So if you struggle, don't get frustrated about it, just breathe. An image I like to give, we all know where the fish have got the gills on the side of the neck. So just imagine you're a fish with the gills, just your gills on the side of the ribs. And again, it doesn't have to be a huge breath, it's just sending the ideas sideways into your ribs. Now let's try a few more. So that's something you can practice all the time. It's useful to try this in front of the mirror because you can see what's happening. Okay. Now the nice way with sideways breathing, that's why Pilates uses it a lot. You find dancers use it a lot as well. It's the most efficient way to breathe for your diaphragm, and also you haven't got any postural interference, like with the chest breath. I'm changing my posture, I'm coming to this puffed up posture, okay? Or belly breathing, well, it's nice and relaxing, but my belly is out here, so I can't really tone my belly because it's out there. Well, for singing we use it a lot because we obviously need to control the airflow. Yoga uses it a lot. But the most efficient way for postural awareness is to breathe sideways. And also the most efficient way for the diaphragm to function is to breathe into your diaphragm, which is the sideways breathing. So if you imagine where your diaphragm sits, it sits like a little dome in your rib cage, okay? And as we inhale, it pushes downwards, okay? So if you've watched the long video, you know all this already. So we inhale, diaphragm pushes downwards. We call this the intra-abdominal pressure because it puts pressure onto all your organs and the guts. And by doing this, it pushes downwards. The pelvic floor will do the same thing, so they actually work parallel. So, inhalation, diaphragm and pelvic floor push down towards your feet. Exhalation, they release. Okay, so we come to the pelvic floor in a moment. I'd just like you to really visualize where your pelvic floor is going. So either place your hands here or onto your ribs. I'm going to do here, so I see what my for you to see what the diaphragm's doing. So breathing in, it pushes down, exhaling, it comes back up into its dome shape. So we do the same thing with the pelvic floor. Breathing in, they both push down towards the ground, and then releasing, okay? So just visualize where that's happening, because when we're lying down, I can't say to the ground anymore, you just have to know where it goes, okay? So I hope that makes sense. That's the intra-abdominal pressure. Now, if you've been carrying your baby for 9 to 10 months, there's a lot of extra pressure on the pelvic floor because it's pushing down all the time. Hence, the pelvic floor is very weak. And continuously in that downward pushed direction. So that's why we need to strengthen the pelvic floor. Then especially during birth, it pushes further and it might have torn, so you might have actually, or had your muscles cut down there, so it all needs to come back together and heal back up. If you had a C-section, you obviously didn't have that much pressure onto your pelvic floor, however, you've still been carrying the baby's weight. And for C-sections, it's still good to sort of try and knit the stomach muscles back together. Maybe not the first 2 weeks, so we go easy on that. But principally, it's good to watch this and then apply it whenever you're ready. Okay, so the pelvic floor, it's got 3 areas. We've got the back passage, the middle passage, and the front passage. Okay. So again, I find it's quite hard seated. It's easier on the floor, but we're just going to get, so this is the funny bit. So if you imagine it was Christmas, you had a lot of Brussels sprouts, you're sitting at the table, nice and upright, and because you have those Brussels sprouts, you don't want to let one go. So squeeze whatever you would be squeezing to not be unpolite at the dining table. Okay? And you might find that your bum cheeks are squeezing as well, which is perfectly normal. You might find also that your tummy muscles are squeezing in as well, which is also perfectly normal because things work in tandem, and that's great. However, to really rehabilitate the pelvic floor, we're going to try and isolate. So just try and squeeze your back passage without engaging a single other muscle. And that's the real hard challenge. So just try the back passage. So it's a mini movement. You might not be able to feel anything, so maybe initially it's just a thought. You know, quite often the body goes, what the hell do you want from me? And it's just that thought process that needs to go all the way down. So even if nothing's happening, stick with it. Yeah? Just imagine just squeezing the back passage. Okay, we're going to move into the middle passage, which is your vagina, which ladies find the easiest. So try and squeeze just your vagina. Yeah, squeezing it together and up. So again, a simple example is, imagine you've got a straw that goes all the way through you, and you're going to be slurping up through the straw. Actually, when you would take a sip, your stomach muscles automatically go in. So just extend that down. So for me that makes perfect sense. It's a movement we're all familiar with. Okay? And then you've got your front passage. So imagine you want to stop yourself going for a wee. So squeeze the front. And again, that's really hard to find. I instantly want to do this because it's much easier to squeeze, but I'm relying on other muscles. So just try and squeeze the front passage. Again, it might be just a thought rather than anything happening. So we've got these three distinct areas: back passage, middle passage, front passage. Okay. Apparently, you can also separate right from left. Now, I haven't been able to master that yet, so that's maybe a challenge for another day. Okay, so when we are engaging our pelvic floor, we want to go from back to front. So imagine you've got a zipper at the back and you're zipping it up to the front. Okay, so let's try that. So we've got to try breathing in sideways. So diaphragm pushes down, pelvic floor is down, and then as you exhale, you zip up from back to front. Let's practice a few. So breathing in, exhale, zip up, back to front. I have to say it's staccato because then my pelvic floor is actually doing it. So breathing in, exhale, zip up, back to front. Okay? Now then, once you've found that initial engagement, you can allow your bum muscle to help a little bit. And you'll also find that your belly comes in. So breathing in, exhale, zip up and hollow. I would like to say that it flows out of me because your tummy hollows in at the end. Yeah, belly button pushes in towards the spine, creating a little hollow, which we'll see better when we do it lying down. So let's have 3 more, and then we're going to go to the floor. So breathing in, exhale, zip up, back to front, hollow. And it might be just a faster movement. It might just go. Quite often in my classes, I just make breathing noises and everybody knows what it is, rather than having to say it all the time because it gets very, very verbally. So 1 more. And exhale, back to front. Okay, so if this didn't happen yet, don't worry about it because it might be much easier on the floor. Okay, we're going to go down to the floor to work on our pelvic floor again. I'm going to also teach you the full wrap. This is how you engage your core, and then we're going to go over 2 very important pelvic floor exercises. One being the elevator, which is a slow and long contraction, and the other one's the fast twitches, which is sometimes also called the emergency stop. So if you're still very vulnerable to go to the floor, it's probably best if you go down sideways and then lie yourself down onto your back. Okay, so depending on your posture, you might need 1 or 2 little pillows underneath your head. I think I'm probably okay with the 1. Let's get this one out of the way. Okay, if you can, feet nice and parallel, and imagine you had a cup of tea on either knee so we're not swaying out or anything. Now when you're lying, everybody's posture is different, but generally we should be in a neutral spine, which means your fingers go underneath your spine a little bit. Okay? So we're just going to recap the different ways of breathing. As I said, belly breathing is a lot easier on the floor. So place your hands on your belly and then breathe in, extending the belly up to the ceiling, and then just let it fall out. Yeah, let gravity help you. So we're just going to do a few of those. Breathing in. And exhale, let the air fall out. And 2 more in. Let the air fall out. And 1 more in. And let the air fall out. Good. I find this so much easier lying down. Let's do chest breathing. So cross your hands on your chest and 3 nice deep breaths into your lungs. And again, let the air fall out. 2 more. And 1 more. Good. Let's try our sideways or diaphragmatic breathing. So place your hands on your rib cage, or you can put your fingertips on top, whatever feels more comfortable. So breathing in, trying to extend the air sideways into your ribs. And exhale. And in this position, visualize what your diaphragm's doing. So I'm going to put one hand as my diaphragm again. I'm not sure whether you can see. It's here. So diaphragm stone shaped. As I inhale, it pushes downwards, and the pelvic floor does the same. As I exhale, it comes back up to its dome shape. Okay? Okay, relaxing on the breathing. Try just engage your back passage a little bit, which I find now lying down a lot easier. Yeah, I can do it with rubbing my glutes, which is your big bum muscles. But it's much easier to isolate just the back passage. So 2 or 3 more. Okay, and then try the middle passage. Remember, slurping through the straw. Applying your diaphragmatic breathing. So breathing in. Exhale, slurping through the straw. That I find easier sitting. But everybody's different there from experience. 2 more. And then we're going to try the front passage. Again, it's easier in that position. I find it easier if I have my legs wider and then let the knees come together. Instantly, that's much easier. So you can try that. That's also a really nice relaxing position if you've got back issues. Just squeezing the front passage. Breathing in. Squeezing the front passage. Okay, so just as an exercise, remember you can do that at any time. Do 3 in the back, 3 in the middle, 3 in the front. Okay, let's go for a zip up and hollow. So feet back parallel. You're going to breathe in sideways. Exhale, zip up back to front and draw your belly button in. And you might notice as you zip up back to front, your pelvis actually tilts. If I take my arms out of the way and I'm going to over-exaggerate, so let's say I've got a rather large curve here, I can get my hands under. So breathe in, exhale, zip up from back to front. My pelvis automatically rolls and imprints into the floor, and I'm going to draw my tummy in. Okay, so we're going to use that because that's what the pelvis wants to do, so we're going to use it. Breathing in, exhale, zip up back to front, and then draw the belly button in. Now we say hollow here. In an ideal world, if somebody's very, very, very skinny, you should have your hip bones here, and then the belly hollows in like a little valley, okay? But mine definitely doesn't do that anymore. So hip bones would be higher than you're trying to hollow your tummy in, okay? Also with this pelvic, we call this pelvic tilt. If you know where your pubic bone is, you're going to move one leg out of the way, pubic bone is here. So If I'm really arched, I've got the hip bones higher than my pubic bone. Okay. If I'm sort of neutral, they are level. If I'm tucked under, my pubic bone is higher up than my hip bones. And that's what we're aiming for. So when we breathe in, exhale, zip up and hollow back to front. Your spine is fully imprinted. And your pubic bone is the highest bone up. If you really struggle with that, you could put something underneath your feet, maybe a little block or pillow. That will make it easier. Okay? Because some people are really, really arched and they struggle with tucking under. Or you could even have your feet up on the chair. Makes it much easier for the spine. Okay, so we've got the first part of our full wrap, which is drawing the belly button down. So let's talk through that again. Breathing in. Exhale, zip up, hollow back to front and pull the belly button in. Okay, that makes sense and that's really good so far. I'm just going to come up. Now, if you've ever looked at your core muscles properly, most people think it's just the front wall. It actually isn't. Your core muscle goes from the front. Okay, you might have your separation there, so that's a different section where we check for the separation here. So it's a big slab of fascia. Then they go all the way across your pelvic rim to the back, meet in a big slab of fascia again, and then around your ribs, there. But internally, see, so it's literally like wearing a corset on the inside. Remember those old-fashioned corsets that have got strings at the back and they've been pulled tight to get together. So what we want to do with a full wrap is tightening the corset. Okay? So that's our next step. We pull the belly button in and we tighten the corset. Let's try this lying down again. So breathing in. Exhale, zip up back to front, pull belly button in and internally tighten the corset. Again, it might be just a visual image at the moment, there might not be much happening. Remember, you might have this separation here and then your belly has been out here all stretched. Those muscles are all going to be very, very confused. Now the third step is also you want to try and bring your hip bones closer together. They're not actually physically coming together, it's just another way of thinking. Your tummy muscles, core muscles go diagonally this way. Yeah, so you want to knit them back together. So you pull them down, that was your first step. You tighten the internal corset, which is bringing everything down. It also unflares the rib cage, because quite often they're really flared, so pulling all that down. Then imagine you've got a shoelace between your hip bones, and you tighten the knot, okay? So this is very different from just pulling the belly button down. It also brings the muscles in together, okay? So depending where your separation was, it could be below the belly button, could be higher, it could be all the way along. So the belly button down is good. Closing the internal corset will definitely bring the front bit, the top bit together, and then drawing them tight. Tightening the shoelace in between your hip bones will bring this bit together. I know there's an awful lot to think about, so in the early days, just practicing that is golden. So we're going to do 3 more, nice and slow. Are we ready? So breathing in sideways. Exhale, zip up back to front and full wrap, which is belly button, internal corset, tie the knot. And release. I haven't got enough words to actually, or too many words to actually say this all in one go. So generally I say zip up and hollow, but I think I'm going to go zip up and full wrap. Okay? So let's try again. Breathing in. Exhale, zipping up back to front, full wrap. And the full wrap is really hard to do in stages. It's sort of, you have to use it all at the same time. It's hard to go belly, internal corset, then the shoelace. Just make it happen all together. Full wrap, all together. 2 more. Breathing in. Exhale, zip up, hollow, imprint, full wrap. Release. Breathing in. Exhale, zip up back to front, imprint, full wrap. There we go, very well done. Now as an exercise, just that, you can do this really strong for about 100%. Later on, when we come to just doing some exercises, this is for the 6 weeks plus or 8 or 12 weeks plus if you had a cesarean, we actually do interesting things with our legs. We never engage for 100% because it just makes you rigid. We'll only be using it for about 30% then. Okay, so the pelvic elevator is basically what we've just done, but you want to bring your pelvic floor as high up as you can. Now, it's not going to come up to here, it's just a visual image. So if you imagine when you're lying relaxed, you're on the ground floor, or maybe even in the basement, okay? And as you do your zip up and hollow and full wrap, you're drawing your pelvic floor up to the 10th floor. And then slowly bring it back down. And this is where you need to test yourself. Now you might only be able to go to the 3rd floor, or let's say hold for 3 seconds, but you really want to be working up to 10. Okay, so keep doing that every day. Don't be frustrated if it's only going to 3 or to 1. It needs practice, it needs drilling, and it will get better. So I'm going to go counting up to 10. But you can do it in your own time and just go as far as you can go. So breathing in. Exhale, zip up hollow. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Release. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it's literally my whole journey. Once the pelvic floor is engaged, the imprint and the wrap takes up all the time for bringing the pelvic floor up and then slowly releasing back down. Okay, so we're going to do one more. I'm just going to go to 5 this time, just to make it a little easier. So breathing in. Exhale, zip up back to front, full wrap. 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm now imprinted and release. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good. So this is the elevator. This is your slow motion. Then you've got the fast twitches or the emergency stop, and it's basically just doing this with your pelvic floor. So you want to get into a reasonably good posture, not full imprint, just a little bit engaged, and just contract. Okay, and again, you can separate, you can just try do your back passage. You can try do your middle passage. And you can try do your front passage. Or you can try all 3 together, or zip them up back to front. You can play around with thousands of variations. So mathematically, you need to work out how many different variations you could be doing. So 3 in the back, 3 in the front, 3 in the middle, 3 back to front. That obviously take a bit longer. I have to do this with my fingers, that helps. That's fine. Okay? So this is literally like sort of stopping yourself going for a wee mid-flow, but don't do this on the toilet because you can get infection. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Next, we're going to do this all stood up. Okay, are we ready to practice our pelvic floor stood up? I'm going to go sideways for the beginning. So you probably have quite a large curve in your lower spine. So what we've been doing lying down when we were imprinting, we now want to allow the pelvis to tilt. Now normally when I get people that come to me to tilt their pelvis, what happens a lot is doing this. That's why it's good to learn it on the floor, because if you're on the floor you can't really do this. So you'll have to judge what is suitable at what time for you. However, other people find it perfectly easy. So I'm going to stay sideways. We soften the knees, never on straight legs, because you can't really move your pelvis on straight legs apart from sticking your bum out, which we don't want. So soft knees, nice and parallel as if you stood on train tracks. Okay, so going to breathe in sideways. Exhale, zip up and hollow back to front, adjust the pelvis. And in that position, stood up, actually the tummy contracts automatically the most. Okay, so breathing in. Exhale, zip up back to front, see my pelvis moving, and do your full wrap. And release. Breathing in. Exhale, zip up hollow. Full wrap. And releasing, going to face forward now. So breathing in sideways. Exhale, zip up back to front, total wrap. So if you understood it on the floor, it's the same thing stood up, it's just a little bit harder to do. Okay, and then let's do 2 or 3 elevators. So breathing in, exhale, zip up and hollow, bring the elevator up. And down. And again, and up. And down. And up. And down. And the same thing for your fast contractions. Get into a reasonable neutral position and contract. Again, it can just be back passage, it could just be middle passage, it could be front passage, or it could be the full wrap, as long as you do it, okay? Now, a good little tip is, rather than thinking, oh my God, I have to exercise, find certain activities where you can do this, because nobody can see what you're doing. So for example, if you're putting on the kettle, you know, once the water's boiling, just do at least 3 slow pelvic floor elevators. You know, whilst you're pouring the water into the cup, do the fast ones. There you're done. So you don't have any extra work, you're just doing it whilst you're doing something else. Obviously, if you need to do it lying down first, then you have to practice that first. You can also do the full elevator seated. Yeah, just making sure again that we're sitting nice and upright, or you can do it sitting on the floor. If you are sitting on the floor, you probably want something to sit on, so a big pillow could do. Again, this is all different. Some people are perfectly happy sitting with their legs cross-legged or in flogs, yeah? So that's fine, but you should always have your hips higher. That's a little bit too high for me. But sometimes just a folded up blanket will do, just so that your hips are a little bit higher than your feet. And it also helps with sitting upright. Okay, there you go. So that's another really good position. So no slouching. If you're slouching on the sofa or on the chair, it's really not working because you can't breathe properly. Yeah. When you're feeding, you're probably not really upright either. You're probably sort of curved over. So you can do the pelvic floor, the fast ones to extend, but I recommend really just sort of trying to do it as you do an activity like boiling the water in the kettle, or just take the 5 minutes to do it lying it on the floor. Okay? And once you've mastered those, so you're really going to be clear that you understand what you're doing, we can then have the next step and go to the actual exercises that are recommended in the early days.